Hello, dear colleagues, dear friends, and dear unknown audience. I posted two videos from last night, which were just absolutely insane attacks. I mean, all attacks are insane, but this is just now end state murder, essentially. So I've discussed before that as far as I can tell, what is used is the crossover of two beams. So you can essentially an AI system can correct for all the essentially read out the thickness of the walls bit by bit. And my essentially the overt part of the targeting started in January, so it's very likely that already before, as soon as we moved in, they started mapping out the house. But anyway, so you can shoot beams and essentially have along the beam lines the thickness of the walls measured, have a 3D map of the home, and then you can just place beam lines anywhere and shoot at people and correct for the thickness of the walls. From what I could ascertain, in the moments when it was possible, there seemed to be also crossover beams used. So what this allows you to do, if you imagine just two beams crossing, if you just had one beam, then you can't really deposit energy in a controlled way along the length of the beam. But when you've got two beams, you can take down the energy in each beam, and where they overcross, it's going to be hit with twice as much intensity. And what you can also do is not just have continuous beams, so the beams are always on, but you can have pulsed beams. And once you've mapped out the 3D structure of the building, you can time the pulses such that they coincide essentially, so they essentially they overcross at the same time. So this is entirely feasible with technology these days. It's being done many times over in different fields. And essentially what you saw in the videos last night is, there were instances during the day when I could tell that I'm being shot at every 3 seconds. And I'm sorry, I also have to say I'm in a lot of pain actually. I was really severely damaged last night, and you heard me basically burst out crying, and it's horrific because you're inside your own home, and people maim you, from the outside. I mean, it's in like the medieval ages seemed like a dream when you had the right to your private home, and you could keep the state out of your home. And now with these electromagnetic weapons, they shoot into your home. And the intelligence agency psychopaths use the fact that they essentially use every moment when you're stationary. So this is why in my office I have to have shielding, because otherwise they would just keep shooting at me in my office as well. I don't want this. I've got beautiful paintings and prints behind this that I haven't seen the entire year. But you have to do this, otherwise you don't survive. And they have this program where, first of all, they have with me targeted specific body parts. So in the summer, there were like a 3-month period where it was just almost exclusively my thyroid and my lymph nodes and so on. And they go specifically for these because here they're easily accessible. These are cancer weapons, and once you cause cancer in the lymph system, it's spread throughout the entire body. So this is an extermination program. It's premeditated. And what the intelligence agencies essentially have done yesterday is that for the first time, I actually, I have been in a lot of pain ever since then. I don't break out into tears lightly, but it's, okay, so, essentially, I have been trying to measure things here in the home, and because these frequencies are classified, you don't really know, and the equipment that you have to buy is just like so expensive. I know that Aronia makes a military-grade detection system, and they're advertising it on their YouTube channel. It looks like half a dome, and from what I've just tried to assess based on just these images that they put up online, it seems to be just sampling segments along this half dome and randomly sampled. And I think the idea is that because these shots are pulsed, you have to essentially be sampling at the right moment for them to be able to to detect them. So you have this half dome, and you have a certain acceptance, so you can't, you could, I think, in principle just measure all throughout, but it maybe would be too expensive. But anyway, this thing seems to be sampling randomly, from segments all around, and the idea is that statistically eventually you will pick up the direction from which the beams are shot. And as soon as you're measuring from a little segment, it's almost like an eye, you know, and from there you can calculate whereabouts in space the attackers must be. And I think the sampling can be probably done very, very quickly. So your essentially a computer system just maps it out for you and identifies where your attackers are. But I think this half dome might cost like tens of thousands of euros. So, you know, a year's worth of salary or multiple years' worth of salary. And the people who are attacking innocent victims know that the victims cannot afford the scientific equipment to prove this. But so this is why I really, really struggled. So I've got, as you know, the Aronia device. People asked what software I'm using. It's the free software that comes with the device. Okay, so that's what you see, the black screen with the green lines running. That's their software, their own software. It comes for free with the device that you buy. And the device I have is about 560 euros, I think. So it is a lot of money. But it is also very, very good. So you can plug it into the mains and essentially sample all night long, and you can also record it. So I've now been recording hours and hours worth of this of the attacks on me. And the good thing is that even if you publish this, should you die, and you have these measurements, once we have a whistleblower, once we've declassified or leaked the frequencies, we can go back and we can prove what they did to you. Do you see what I mean? So if you're a victim, put everything out there. Just, you know, I mean, don't think, oh my God, then they'll start watching me, because they're already watching you, okay? But it's the sick bastards watching you. You need really good people watching you, okay? And what you also have is, you don't notice, but behind the scenes there are people who really hate this fucking bullshit. Okay, some of them work in intelligence agencies or in other, you know, places, but some of them are literally just private people with expertise, and they will, you know, gather the information, they will put it together. And I also urge everybody, I've already seen my videos have been copied, and that's okay. All right, copy them, like spread them everywhere. I'm not saying anything that I regret or that I'm embarrassed about. These fuckers should be embarrassed about it. But I ask you, if there's any way that you've got the space or the time that you can download my videos or burn them on CD or back them up in one way or another, that you can keep them for the Nuremberg Trials 2.0, then please do. Okay, everything I put out there, I ask you to not, you know, I mean, I am an abuse victim. I ask you to also respect me and not make like nasty comments and stuff like that, because you have to understand this is an ongoing crime. You wouldn't go up to a woman who just got raped and then just mock her, right, in the police station. And that's essentially what we have here, okay? The police is dysfunctional, they've been captured, and now we're just relying on ourselves. Okay, so you are the police. We are now in a police station, and I'm a victim, and I'm doing my best. I'm also trying to get information out and use my own expertise to somehow put stuff out for you that you can use. But please, if you can take everything I put up there, make backup copies. My website is still under development. I've just dumped stuff on there. But, you know, so if it's shit, come back and it might get better. But please, you know, it's evidence, just make backup copies. The other thing is also just retweet everything that you can. You know, I've noticed that my Twitter account is being shadow banned, so there were like 5,700 impressions and none of them show up on the statistics. Well, that's normal, okay? So when you do anything that's actually meaningful, that happens. You know, many other people who are campaigning about animal rights or just, you know, fresh, clean water have the same thing. So we live in a fucked up world where if you're criminal, you're protected, and if you're trying to actually, you know, help other people, you're being assaulted and actually sabotaged by including Twitter. So, you know, it tells you who owns them. But oh yes, another question before I forget. I'm sorry, I'm all over the shop today. But people, like one person asked, how do I make military grade shielding? And then I clicked on your, you know, profile, and you have literally like an igloo, you know, covered in aluminium. Well, that is already military grade shielding, if you like. The one thing I noticed is that one layer of aluminium is not enough. And I think that is because, first of all, if you crumple it up, you might be making small holes in it that you don't notice. And what that means is that if you're hit by a laser, by a military laser, a planar wave is going to hit it, but as soon as there's like a pinhole, it will start spreading through the pinhole, okay? And that means even if before it was a focused beam, it will after that start spreading everywhere. It's almost like when you've got a bay, you know, in the sea, you know, on the beachfront, you've got a little bay and then a wave comes in. Well, if it hits the barrier, it stops being straight, it starts spreading like that. So if you build your self-protection, you know, you've done really well because you've actually got it, you know, at the bottom, at the top. You have to have it in, you know, all around, essentially. I just would like to say two things. Number one is put several layers on. You know, I mean, you can buy this for, you know, a pound or euro or something like that. But then also, so several layers so that the micro holes that you might not see don't overlap. And in my experience, if you have like 6 layers, that should be fine, you know. Also, the thickness of the aluminium is such that that should be fine. But it's really no gaps, no holes, because as soon as you have holes, you know, it starts spreading, number one. The other thing is when I get hit a lot by pencil beams, so these are straight beams that I can also feel. So, you know, when they hit my head and I put my hand there, it actually punches through a knuckle or two. So I can tell where the pencil beam is. With intense pencil beams, what I did, what I call my military grade shielding, is I just used moving boxes. Okay, we moved in here, we had lots of moving boxes, and you can buy them for, you know, £2. And I just put them flat. So you've got big, ginormous cardboard, but you can also just use plain cardboard. And then I wrapped it with aluminium, but such that on either side, I basically had 6 layers. So you buy one of these, and then you unroll it, and you keep wrapping it around. And you do that several times, but such that every stripe like this overlaps with the next stripe. Do you know what I mean? So if you've got stripes like that, they have to overlap by at least 1 or 2 centimeters. Okay? So you've got, you know, you're covering it like that, here, like so. And the next layer, don't put it here, you know, put it such that if this layer is here, the next one is just slightly shifted, and the next one is slightly shifted, so that they overlap. And this way, you don't have gaps where they can spread, you know, or you might have small ones, but if you put it really tightly, then you don't have gaps. That's number one. And then, once you think you're safe from these pencil beams, the other thing is that aluminium is like the most toxic thing that we have. Actually making baked potatoes and the stuff and having food in the stuff is actually the most fucked up thing that you can do. And I don't really know why people are doing that. And it's because if you ingest aluminium, it's like, it's toxic for you. Okay, but what's even worse than ingesting aluminium is breathing in aluminium. So what I'm doing here is, it's essentially death. That's like a wall of death. Okay, so that's another thing. If I get back to court, I want compensation for, you know, the secondary effects, essentially, what these fuckers have done. It's not just the primary effects, it's the secondary effects. And so what I would recommend you do, and that's what I've done with my moving boxes. Actually, let me show you my military grade shielding. As long as my neighbor doesn't start shooting. So it will look like that. Okay, you can see here how I've done these layers, right? You can see the line. Okay, and then what you can also buy is this transparent, I don't know what you call it, you know, this transparent stuff that you can wrap furniture in when you're moving house, and you can get a ginormous roll again for £5. And then if you take the aluminium and then wrap it several times in this transparent, like, hang on, like this stuff, cellophane, whatever you call it, then at least the aluminium dust is contained. Okay, so as a scientist, this is what I would say to you. You have to have aluminium everywhere around you. But if you do, you will be handling aluminium. I mean, already I can tell I've got aluminium dust on my fingers, you know. So that's what they don't tell you, you know. But I really, really say that aluminium is just deadly for human beings, you know. And that's the problem. So if you've got I really like the idea, if you're basically you're under military assault, okay? So if you bunker down and you've got a tent that's entirely wrapped in aluminium, that's the best thing. Just think about two things, okay? Number one is if the material is fairly transparent, or not transparent, but has, you know, air gaps, then with time the aluminium dust will be just collecting inside. You'll be breathing it in. You'll be basically poisoning yourself bit by bit, like I'm doing here. And then the other thing is you need to have like an air supply. So if you zip it close and you're in this tiny confined space, you basically will have very low oxygen levels after a while, and that's also bad for you, you know. So I wouldn't recommend that you do that. If you can find a way to somehow shield the direction from which they're shooting, and then have it open to the other direction. But I know that's really hard, because as soon as we try to protect ourselves, they read it out. I mean, they can see you with radar, and then they will just go to the side where it's not protected and shoot in. And as soon as you shoot in, what you essentially have is a reflecting cavity. Okay, so aluminium blocks these laser beams or focused beams because it's reflecting. But when you have a cavity, it will be internally reflecting. So, you know, it will be bouncing back and forth until it hits you, essentially. So, but I mean, isn't it fucked up? We need to talk about this. Isn't it fucked up that civilians need to essentially think about, like, military grade, you know, bunkers as if it was the fucking Somme, just because the heads of our intelligence agencies are so fucked up? Do you see what I mean? So I would recommend, if you've got whatever shielding you have good enough, okay, right now, every fucking waking second that you have, just write letters, emails, letters, and address them to the top. Don't piss around with the lower grade, like local police, you know, literally, MPs, you know, and the heads of the intelligence agencies. I mean, these are the people who are doing it, okay? So fucking write to them, like all of you. I mean, they now created thousands of victims. If every Monday they get a letter from us, it literally, like 500 pages of paper, if you buy a pack, is like this thick. You know, if you get 1,000 letters, it's this thick. If you have to even carry it to the shredder or carry it to the bin, even that leaves an impression. Do you see? So with emails, you can just, you know, Control A, highlight them all, and then delete, and that's it. If you write physical letters, someone has to actually fucking take that down to the bins. Do you see? So I would say, write letters, you know, and if you could, rub them on the backside of a dog before you send them, you know, why not? Sorry, I shouldn't really say that. It might be terrorism, I don't know. But then again, who cares, right? So anyway, and this is so much about military shielding, but how fucked up. So anyway, and just like write to everybody, you know, I mean, email other people, like, who should be in charge of this, like hospitals, lawyers, doctors, even if they don't reply, if we just all keep just, you know, pulsing the information, eventually it will stick in their minds. They will have heard about it, you know. It makes a difference if you know, someone like a patient approaches you and you've never heard about microwave weapons, or if you've just been spammed with microwave weapons for the past 2 months and then suddenly you have a patient, you know. Do you see what I mean? So anybody you can write to, just send the fucking emails. I mean, what are they gonna do, right? Can like shoot at you with microwave weapons, you know? So this is what I'm trying to do. You've seen my Twitter feed. And the other thing is, if you write to people such as it's public, by the time the stuff will be all like public, we'll start, you know, the proper investigation. We can refer back to these people and say, it's like a time zero. As soon as you send the letter or the email and you make it public that you've sent it, we can all go back by the time everybody has their head out of their ass, and then ask, why did Mr. X not do anything on the 6th of December 2012, you know, and that you can use in a court of law. So, Mr. X, you were told about this. Why did you choose to do nothing? You know, and at the moment it looks like, oh, the situation will never arise because they, you know, they have like critical mass, they control the system. But that can flip very quickly, you know, because essentially it's like pushing a ginormous rock. So at first you've got inertia. So the hardest bit is until the rock starts moving. And as soon as it starts moving, it develops its own momentum. You know, and as you know, if a rock is, you're pushing a ginormous rock and it starts rolling, then suddenly stopping it is the problem, you know, not giving it another little push. And it's the same in complex human systems as well. Okay? So please, all of you, it doesn't matter how little the pushes are, you know, especially with information, it sticks in people's heads. You know, if you send someone an email and they read it, even if they delete it, you're in there. You're like in there like a virus. Okay? The information is stuck and there's no way to erase it. So please, all of you, and you know, if you tweet at people, specific people, whoever, but just make it personal so that they, you know, perk up. And if you can write emails, great. And if you can write letters, that's even better. You know, it's sometimes pennies or, you know, pences and cents to actually send a letter. So just, you know, have a budget that you say every month you're going to spend $5, €5 or whatever on sending letters, physical letters. And also if your country has freedom of information laws, if you send, I think that also applies to emails, just like physical letters, you know, make it public that you sent email. And then journalists or investigators or other private people can make a freedom of information request and say to an institution, how many letters did you receive about microwave assaults on civilians? Huh? And then they reply, and if we have all the letters public, you know, there are researchers in the background who do gather this information, by the way, you know. So there, as I said, there are a lot of people who are fed up with this stuff, you know. So just make it, send it, and as soon as you send it to an actual institution that has got freedom of information, you know, it can be requested back. It will not return your individual letter, but it will return the statistic, you know. And if, say, an institute had already received 5,000 letters about microwave attacks, in a court of law you can say, okay, so Mr. X, head of the institute, why did you choose to do nothing? You know? And don't forget that what we're doing, it doesn't matter how many of us they kill. Okay? Because this is a ratchet. With every person they kill, there's more on their plate at the Nuremberg trials. And information cannot be removed from the internet as long as people spread it. So whatever I say, spread it everywhere. Okay? I'm Dr. Katherine Horton. I'm in Switzerland, but I was also attacked in Germany, in the UK, in Italy, in Spain, and the Netherlands. And what I can tell you is that your assault protocol travels with you. So I got assaulted in Switzerland on the back of my head with pencil beams. In the morning in Switzerland, I flew to the UK, and on my drive from London to Manchester, I was hit in the back of the head from a car behind me as I was driving the motorway. You know, so what the Swiss intelligence agency did to me, MI5 took over. Okay, and that's because they're all one integrated system. And once systems are coupled, if, you know, things starts going badly wrong, it goes badly wrong everywhere. So if they start becoming Nazis, they become Nazis everywhere. Okay, so this is what I would say. Anyway, I'm now talking again way too long, but you know, this is basically what I can say to you. And yes, one more thing. Everywhere near you there are universities, okay? And we also know that some universities are working in this stuff, but I have worked at a university, and I can tell you that most people who work at universities, first of all, the pay is shit, and you have to teach a lot of students, and we will not last a day in that sort of job on a shit pay teaching students if you don't actually love your students and if you don't love your job. Do you see what I mean? So there's a lot of people who are very, very, very altruistic. Okay, so if you can write to academics at a nearby university or any university, you know, it's also good to tell them what's happening, ask them specifically for help, and ask them by name, you know, like, you help me. Okay, so for example, if the police, when they are making like courses to train like victims and women, you know, how to protect yourself, they also say, if say you're traveling on the underground at night and you're alone with one other person in the carriage, and the person starts attacking you, you know, you have to turn it into a personal attack back. Okay, so you don't just, you know, it has to be personal. So this is why I'm saying, with the intelligence agencies, go to the top. Okay, MI6 is run by Alex Younger. This means any shit that happens is his problem. Okay, so if you're the hunted, turn into the predator. Okay, make it personal. Make it personal towards the perpetrators. But number two, when you're asking for help, also make it personal, because then people respond. Okay, because suddenly it's on their plate. So that's another thing that these police courses train, you know, women to do. So say if you're on a carriage and you're not alone, and someone still tries to rape you, which incredibly actually does happen, and there are news reports of women having been raped, you know, in like full carriages and stuff like that. Don't just cry for help in general terms, like help, help, you know. No, say to one guy, please, you help me now, and then make it specific what they have to do. Because then it's a command, you know, and it's on their plate. Do you see what I mean? So if you can please help me to just spread awareness, write to all the universities, especially people in engineering and physics, they should be able to figure this out. Okay, but also if you can write to the psychology department, because these people also need to get their head out of their ass. Like for 40 years, they couldn't figure out voice to fucking skull, and now there's a TED talk on this. Okay, and the patent is from the 1970s, so for 40 years, they've been essentially screwing people over, saying, oh, it's all in your head. Yeah, it is in your head, but there's a beam going into your head. Do you see what I mean? So we have to now basically educate everybody and bring them up to speed in the 20th century. So if you're a victim, I would say just please do this. What else can I think of? Oh yes, lawyers. Just write to lawyers, you know. I mean, we have to inundate them at some point, and they're the ones who can help us, essentially, you know. And if you can write to judges as well. And as always, they might throw the letter away, but by the time they've read it, you're in there, you know. That information cannot be erased. Please, I'm just working all out. I'm absolutely inundated. If you can help me by, you know, spreading the word, or, you know, spreading the videos that you think are helpful, please do. We have to essentially spam the internet with this, you know, so that we recruit the people who are clued in and who can help. And there's lots of them out there, you know. And also academics have a natural curiosity, and sometimes, if they're lucky, also might have spare time to research the stuff, you know. And at the end of the day, I do think it is their job to do that. Okay, I won't make this video any longer. I hope this helps, and I'll try to put out some other stuff. And best of luck, and please, if you can, help us.